Hi grade 12s, welcome to lesson 2 of sequences and series. We are doing arithmetic sequences with variables, which means sometimes they will give you the arithmetic sequence in terms of x or y or p or k or any other letter. These letters we call variables. I'm going to do this question with you. Let's look at our example. Our example says the first three terms of an arithmetic sequence. Okay, so they tell you that it's a linear number pattern. We know it is a linear number pattern, which means there is a constant difference. The first term is x. The second term is 4x plus 5. And the third term is 10x minus 5. The question is, so we have to calculate the value of x. So let's start. Because they say it's an arithmetic sequence, we know that the constant difference d is equal to term 2 minus term 1. But d is also equal to term 3 minus term 2. It means that these two things are equal to each other. So I'm going to start by writing these two things down. So I'm always going to start with T2 minus T1. That's the constant difference. Will be exactly the same as T3 minus T2 because that is also the constant difference. And now I'm going to substitute the values that they gave me. So I'm going to start with T2. T2 is 4x. Remember, this is T2. T2 is 4x plus 5. So 4x plus 5 minus term 1. Term 1 is x. So when you minus, just put in brackets. So T2 minus T1 is the same as T3. So 10x minus 5 is T3 minus T2. So T2 is 4x plus 5. So I would say just remember to put this one in brackets and that one in brackets. Why? Because when you minus and you remove the brackets, your signs might change. Okay? This will give you a mark. Let's go. Now we're just doing the algebra and then we're solving for x. So I'm going to have 4x plus 5. A negative times a positive is still a negative. And then I'm going to have 10x minus 5. A negative times a positive is a negative. And a negative times another positive is a negative. Okay, and then I'm going to take all my x's to the one side. I'm bringing over 10x, so it's minus 10x. I'm bringing over minus 4x, so it's plus 4x. On the right hand side, I have a minus 5, another minus 5. And I'm bringing this 5 over, so it's a minus 5. I'm going to simplify the left hand side. So 4 minus 1 minus 10 plus 4 will give me a negative 3x. And this is equal to negative 15. And then to get x by itself, I divide by the number in front of x, which is a negative 3. And what I do on the left, I do on the right. Negative 15 over negative 3 is a positive 5. And there you solve for x. So the first part of the question was determine the value of x. The second part of the question is determine the sequence. So when they say determine the sequence, they actually just want term 1, term 2, and term 3. So they want the actual values of term 1, term 2, and term 3. So I'm just going to write all my terms down that they gave me. They said term 1 is x. They said term 2 is 4x plus 5. They said term 3 is 10x minus 5. So if term 1 is x and x is 5, then term 1 is just 5. Term 2 is 4x plus 5, so 4 times x is now 5 plus 5. This will give me 25. And then term 3 is 10x, so 10 times 5 minus 5. And this will give me 45. So can you see, wherever there was an x, I just replaced it with 5. There was an x, replaced with 5. There's an x, replaced with 5. The final answer is the sequence is term 1 is 5, term 2 is 25, term 3 is 45. Okay, let's look at example 2. It says the first 3 terms of an arithmetic sequence. So they must tell you this. The first 3 terms of an arithmetic sequence are term 1 is p, term 2 is 2p plus 2, and term 3 is 5p plus 3. So let's label term 1, term 2, term 3. So the question is, solve for p. So find the value of p and determine the sequence. So because we're working with an arithmetic sequence, we know the constant difference is T2 minus T1, or it can also be T3 minus T2. It can also be T10 minus T9. It can be T100 minus T99. But we don't have these terms, so we're only working with these two. If D is this and D is also that, it means these two are equal to each other. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to say T2 minus T1 is exactly the same as T3 minus T2. And then I'm going to substitute. But remember, I told you, put this in brackets and put that in brackets so we don't make mistakes. So T2, if you look here, there's T2. T2 is P plus minus T1 is P. So I'm going to put that in brackets. Term 3 is P plus 3 minus term 2 is 2P plus, and I'm going to put that in brackets. Now I'm just going to do the algebra and solve for P. So this is 2P plus 2. This is minus P. And this is 5P plus 3 minus 2P. And this is minus 2. P is on the one side. So I have a 2P here. And a minus P. I'm bringing over the 5P. I'm bringing over the negative 2. So it becomes a positive. On the other side, I have a 3 and a negative 2. I'm bringing over this positive 2, so it's a negative 2. And I'm adding all my like terms. When I add up all my like terms, I get minus 2p. And then on the right-hand side, I get minus 1. Divide both sides by the number in front of p. So I get my p to be a half. Okay, so p is a half. Now, I've solved for p, so that was the first part of the question. Solve for p. Now I have to determine the sequence. So to determine the sequence, I write T1 is p. T5p plus 3. And now I simply make all my p's, I make it equal to a half. The first term is just p, so it means this is a half. This one is 2, there's the p, so a half, plus 2. This gives me 3, and this is 5, there's a half, and this is 3. This gives me 11 over 2. So the sequence is term 1, term 2, term 3. That's the sequence. And there you have it, grade 12's arithmetic sequences with variables. In my next lesson, I'm going to do simultaneous equations, which is new to grade 12. So that will be lesson 3.